Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Stable Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, just about 13 years strong. Middle of April, it'll be 13 years. Wow, folks. Longtime listeners, thanks for sticking with us. If you're new, we've got our Opposition Territory show here. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm Jeff Warren, and we're going to be diving into the Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, with our good friend. He's been on the show a number of times over the years. We love talking to him. He is from SB Nation's fieldgoals.com. Check out everything they have going on over there. Mr. Mookie Alexander, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Doesn't it feel awesome when you can win a Super Bowl against a team that previously beat you?
There you go.
The fact that the Eagles got to do it twice, I mean,
Yes.
that clearly means the next time the Seahawks win the Super Bowl, they got to be Pittsburgh and only Pittsburgh. I
There
will
you go.
accept no other alternatives. That way the Eagles and Seahawks can have that bit in common. But yeah, this has been
Absolutely.
awesome.
What an amazing season for the Seattle Seahawks, to be honest with you. And so many amazing storylines, whether it is Sam Darnold, whether it was a dominant offensive line, what the defense was able to do throughout the season. But, that being said, Mookie, as we are heading into this 2026 season, I mean, we're technically already there with the offseason. And with these reigning Super Bowl champs, there's so many expectations that they're going to be hopefully within the fan base, that they're going to be competing again this coming season for another Super Bowl. But man, it's really hard, as we know, for NFL teams to repeat, to do it again. I've seen it with the Philadelphia Eagles here in Philly, but I'm just amazed at how Mike Macdonald has done such a tremendous job. He's done an incredible job being the head coach of this team, putting this team in a good place throughout the 2025 season, and what that really means for the future of this team and franchise overall. So to get us started out here, what are your thoughts about that notion that it's going to be extremely tough for Seattle to get back to the big game this coming season? What are your thoughts here?
It's more than sensible to think that it's going to be hard for the Seahawks to even get back to the Super Bowl, let alone win it, because history is a guide. And certainly in the salary cap era, the only teams that have been able to repeat are the New England Patriots with Tom Brady and the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. And you're looking at two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. The one common thing with pretty much every team that's been able to repeat is a Hall of Fame level quarterback and or a Hall of Fame coach. So you think about the Broncos, and it's late career John Elway, but you still had Mike Shanahan, who, as far as I'm concerned, should be considered a Hall of Fame coach. You've got, the Dallas Cowboys had Jimmy Johnson win a couple of Super Bowls with Troy Aikman, so that's a Hall of Fame combo right there. The 80s, you had the San Francisco 49ers and Joe Montana, and then, of course, they were able to win with Bill Walsh and George Seifert, and Bill Walsh is certainly one of the best we've ever seen. And then 1970s, you're talking about the Miami Dolphins, Don Shula, and Bob Greasy, and you also got the Pittsburgh Steelers with Terry Bradshaw, Chuck Noll. So do the Seahawks have that kind of, is Mike Macdonald a Hall of Fame caliber coach? If he keeps this up, heck yeah, he's going to be.
Right.
But with Sam Darnold, he's certainly endeared himself to this fan base very quickly. As far as any elite level trajectory, we're going to have to hold our horses there.
Yeah.
Because he's still got a lot of catching up to be considered a consensus top 5 quarterback. But in terms of just getting back to the Super Bowl, there's so many variables at play that are beyond just performance. There's injury luck. Let's face it, the Seahawks were quite fortunate. They had a lot of injuries, but not a lot of severe injuries throughout the year.
Yeah.
So that the most severe injury they suffered all season was Zach Charbonnet tearing his ACL in the divisional round, which meant that he only missed 2 games. And they were able to cope because Kenneth Walker was the Super Bowl MVP, and he was pretty much the starting running back to begin with. So you also got to factor in schedule. The schedule for this year, you don't know who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. We're in March, so this could end up being a much easier schedule than you think. But if the AFC West ends up reloading with the Chiefs being back to what they previously were, you know that the Broncos are still going to be in the mix. If the Raiders are not going to be an embarrassment with Clint Kubiak as head coach, if the Chargers are going to still be strong, the schedule could get tougher than last year. So for the Seahawks, as far as being able to contend, be in the playoffs, it shouldn't be difficult for them to get back in the hunt because they've been a team that's won a lot of games through Pete Carroll's tenure, and they've won 10 games in Mike Macdonald's first year and then 14 games the following year. So getting back and repeating would be exceptionally difficult, but it's not just because of roster change or anything. It's the NFL, man. It's parity. It is a parity driven league. It's really hard to have the right set of circumstances keep happening for you to get back.
Well, I think it's important to note, and this is something I've been saying a lot on this podcast show over the years, and reflective of what the Philadelphia Eagles have been, especially over the past 5 years. I want my teams to be relevant. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily have to be Super Bowl or bust, or in baseball, it doesn't have to be World Series or bust. I want my teams to be competitive. I want them to be relevant year after year. And I think that's what we are going to be seeing with the Seattle Seahawks, much like the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are going to be in that playoff contention picture. During each offseason, it's just going to be there. And I think the Seattle Seahawks are at that stage and within that territory of being a very relevant NFC team that folks need to take into consideration when they're talking about what's going to happen with the NFC West. Who are the contenders going to be? I think the relevance of teams, I think that's where you want to be as a fan base, quite frankly. That's where I come from, Mookie.
Yeah, and the problem with the end of the Pete Carroll era was, yeah, they were 9-8 or kind of they were scraping by. They were in the mix to be a wild card team, but they were very rarely good enough to be remotely considered a Super Bowl contender.
Right.
And that
Not
is in
very relevant. Not very relevant, frankly,
no,
during that point in time.
it's in stark contrast to at the start of Carroll's tenure, where we're rebuilding and then had the
Yep.
famous playoff win over the Saints, and then in next to no time they're able to be a serious Super Bowl contender in Russell Wilson's rookie year, Super Bowl champion the following year,
Yep.
and then a yard away from being Super Bowl champion, repeat champion the year after that. And when you think about it, Seattle is the only NFC team this century to go to back-to-back Super Bowls. So they're looking to
Yeah.
repeat history there,
Yeah.
but with a slightly different outcome in the big game itself. But then kind of after 2016-ish, the Seahawks under Pete were just kind of languishing in the middle class. And Mike McDonald has got them living in the penthouse now, the
Yes.
NFL penthouse again.
Yes.
So I don't want to be evicted anytime soon. To me, if the Seahawks can regularly be competing for division titles, not just getting into the playoffs, competing for division titles, and they play in an extremely tough division, then you're in good hands. The roster should be good enough that your floor is you should be around a wild card team. Your ceiling should be you're a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want relevance year after year, I think, if you're a fan of whatever team in the league. But look, as we're moving along here, Mookie, let's get into some of the talent this Seahawks team ended up losing during this offseason thus far. Tariq Woolen, now on the Philadelphia Eagles. I absolutely love that move. Having another fantastic cornerback, next to Quinyon Mitchell. Kenneth Walker's now with the Chiefs. Kobe Bryant now on the Bears. Boye Moth was a key rotational piece of the pass rush, who's now gone. Yet there are a lot of guys, though, who the front office ended up signing 1-year deals for this upcoming season. How do you think the loss of some of the talent is perhaps going to balance itself out with some of the incoming talent that we're going to see on this team here?
Considering who they lost versus who they brought in, I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a net negative in that front from strictly free agency. They can make up for it in the draft because John Schneider's done a tremendous job with drafting over the last few years. It's going to be a little bit tougher when you only got 4 picks as we speak. But and of course, there are going to be some guys on this roster right now who might not have been playing a lot last year who are going to be competing for starting jobs or more playing time this year. But no doubts, when you think about losing the Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker, he's had his ups and downs in Seattle, certainly with injuries and performance, but he was fantastic in the Super Bowl. He's fantastic during the home stretch of the season. He did not miss a game last year, and I think that was a pretty important thing for Seahawks fans to see that he can be durable enough. I know he split time with Zach Charbonnet, but hey, he's still getting the ball. He's still getting the ball more than Charbonnet was.
Yep.
And he was able to show up week in and week out, and he was one of the best running backs in the league as the season closed out. But as far as paying him up to effectively $15 million a year, that was the largest free agent contract ever given to a running back. I don't think John Schneider was ever interested in re-signing Walker at those prices.
Right.
As much as I love K9, obviously they just extended Jackson Smith and Jigba, and they're going to do the same probably for Devin Witherspoon. So some people are going to have to be gone. We don't have. It's not baseball. We don't
Happens
have
all the time. Yep.
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast. We don't have a salary capless league. Like Major League Baseball, though I don't know how much longer we're going to have that. But anyway, when you look at the other guys they lost, Reek Woolen, of course, now with the Philadelphia Eagles on a 1-year prove-it deal. So I think he's going to be a bigger loss than people realize in the Seahawks
So do I.
secondary.
Yeah.
For as much as I have been irritated with some of the penalties that he's taken or some of the lapses in concentration, when he's on his game, he was a very, very important part of Seattle's secondary and the defense. Just because how many 6'3" corners with a 4.2 40-yard dash and very long arms are you going to be able to find who are startable in this league?
Yeah.
So yeah, Reek's definitely a loss. Kobe Bryant being a starting safety is also a loss in terms of how you're going to have to fill that and fill the safety depth again. Because okay, let's say Ty Okada, his backup, becomes a new starter. Well, somebody's got to be the backup to the former backup.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to be replacing in the draft or free agency, as they did by signing Rodney Thomas, the second from the Indianapolis Colts. And then Boye Mafe, he was a rotational pass rusher, but he was certainly losing time with Mike McDonald in his second season. He was really just not able to get more snaps over DeMarcus Lawrence, Chenna Nwosu, and Derek Hall, and that's because he frankly didn't deserve it. I was
Yeah.
surprised that Cincinnati paid that much money to get him, but Mafe has been a good rotational piece for them in years past. So no ill will towards Mafe leaving at all. I think there was no chance he was ever going to come back. Same with Reek. I don't think that Woolen was ever going to come back to Seattle
Yeah.
for reasons that extend beyond just on-field performance. I think there was some behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on that made it tough to justify bringing him back. But as you said, a lot of one-year deals for the Seahawks. This is not unusual for them in free agency. Last year was the outlier because of how many people they lost. That's why they decided to splash on Sam Darnold, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
They don't have that same
Yeah.
situation this year. So Emmanuel Wilson, is he a direct Kenneth Walker replacement? Absolutely not. He's not the same style of running back. He's not even been a starter in this league. So he is going to be there to compete for playing time. But as far as who's going to be an actual starting running back, that's still very much to be determined. Noah Igbenogany, former first round pick out of Auburn, who's with the Miami Dolphins. He's kind of bounced around the league a bit. So he's somebody that has been on Seattle's radar for a couple of years. So now that they finally got him, let's see if he can be a viable nickel corner at a time when the Seahawks may have to do a little bit more shuffling with Reek Woolen gone. You don't have that extra, you basically don't have three standout cornerbacks now with Job, Witherspoon, and Woolen. It's now you kept Josh Jobe, you got Devin Witherspoon, but are you going to play Witherspoon more on the outside as opposed to how much slot he played through the
Yeah.
first few seasons of his career? So the 1 year signings are not going to offset the people that they lost, but they could still be depth pieces for the Seahawks in the long run. And look, big picture, Seattle only had 9 unrestricted free agents, and they
Yeah.
only had 17 free agents total, or I think it was 17 or 18 free agents total. They kept 13 out of the 18. So they brought a lot of the band back together. It's just that the pieces they did lose all had significant snap totals. Well, except Derek Young. And even then, he was mostly a special teams guy. But they kept a lot of their guys. But the ones who left, the prominent ones, it's just a matter of, well, unfortunately, you can't pay everybody.
Yeah, exactly. That is the thing, and we always know that, you always lose guys in free agency. It's the nature of the beast, and teams just can't keep every single guy year after year, especially after winning a Super Bowl, especially when you've got a Super Bowl MVP in Kenneth Walker, who just was a valuable player, and teams wanted him. But I'm wondering, like, which side of the ball do you think took the biggest hit this offseason? I mean, was it the offense? Was it the defense? What are your thoughts here?
It's the defense because of the loss of Woolen
Yeah.
and Bryant, because that's too. I know Woolen is technically not a starting cornerback after week one, had a pretty brutal fourth quarter against the 49ers that contributed to their opening day loss. But when you look at the snap counts between him and Josh Jobe, Woolen was kind of like that sixth man in the NBA who plays 30 some odd minutes a game in the
Right.
playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is coming off the bench, but really he is effectively playing starters minutes. And there were some games in which Woolen actually outsnapped Jobe, even though Jobe was a starter. So I expect the defense to take a little bit of a hit because it's also wildly unreasonable to just expect any direct replacement, whether through the draft or free agency, for the whole operation to be as smooth as it was this past season.
Yeah.
And also, the Seahawks were, by most metrics, the best defense in the NFL. So, just from basic mathematical analysis, and inference, what is more likely to happen? They go from one of the best defense in the league last year to even greater than that, which means we're talking about them in 85 Bears territory and
Right.
even the old Legion of Boom Seahawks and 2000 Ravens. Or they're going to take a little bit of a step back. Like a step back from first to second is not the end of the world.
Right,
Uh, and,
exactly.
and the reason why I said defense is because the Seahawks re-signed Rashid Shaheed on offense because I didn't want them to create a void at wide receiver, knowing that Torrey Horton, the dynamic rookie out of Colorado State, is still recovering from a shin injury, so you don't know what his status is going to be. We know he's not going to be really on the field until maybe training camp.
Yeah.
So just to have Shaheed with a full offseason in this offense and getting to work with Sam Darnold a little bit longer, I think Shaheed could provide a lot of value as a wide receiver in addition to what he does on special teams. And personally, he was one of my favorite interviews at the Super Bowl. I did get to go Super Bowl game week and go to the press conferences and talk to a lot of these Seahawks players. And for Shaheed, he told me that when he got traded, because the Saints were obviously weren't very good, that he knew in a couple of weeks that the Seahawks were something special, more than just a good team, but a team that was going to be good enough to win the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I think he was genuine in wanting to be here long term, and that's exactly what happened.
Again, folks, we're talking to Mookie Alexander from fieldgoals.com, great SB Nation site. Learn a lot about the Seattle Seahawks when you head on over there. Mookie, let everybody know where they can catch you on the socials if you want to get that out there, where they can connect with you before we head to break.
On Twitter or slash X, if you want to call it X, at Mookie Alexander, Blue Sky, mookiealexander.bsky.social. At some point, I'm going to find a way to shorten that, but I'm too lazy to look it up. And then
Just
I
search
also,
Mookie Alexander
yeah,
on Blue Sky, folks.
yeah. And then my work's at fieldgoals.com. I also run the social media there, Field Goals and fieldgoals.bsky.social. And you can also find some of my national work over at sbnation.com. I'm just back from covering March Madness in Portland. So
Nice.
that was a great experience to venture out and cover some college basketball. So yeah, you can read my work throughout the SB Nation network, whether at .com or on Field Goals.
Awesome. Folks, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we've got more Seattle Seahawks talk coming your way. All right, we're back with our good buddy Mookie Alexander from fieldgoals.com, great SB Nation site. You know, we love our SB Nation sites here at the PST Podcast Show. And Mookie, I really do think it's going to be interesting to see how the Seahawks continue to team build via the NFL draft, what positions and players they're going to be prioritizing for the future. You mentioned only 4 draft picks at this point. I personally think that they're probably going to try to target maybe that second tier type of pass rusher, perhaps a guy like Cassius Howe from Texas A&M, since they did lose Boye Mafe, as we mentioned earlier. But there are others saying that maybe, you know, they should trade back into the second round, gain some more assets because of only having 4 picks in the draft this year. So when looking at the upcoming NFL draft, how do you think the Seahawks are going to approach the first round and the draft overall here?
It's been a long time since John Schneider has traded down. He has been one to stick and pick lately
Yeah.
after years worth of trading down, and generally those results did not work out very well. Like they were getting volume, but they weren't getting enough quality out of their quantity of draft picks. So
Okay.
this is the fewest that the Seahawks have had since 2021. And they only had 3 picks that year, and it was a pretty poor draft as a result. I mean, D. Eskridge was a bust, and some of it was injury, some of it was just performance related. Stone Forsythe was a reserve tackle and just will stay a reserve tackle. And then Trey Brown was an all right cornerback, but I'm not even sure he's on an NFL roster right now. So 3 picks, and you ended up not really getting a great contributor out of any one of them. So in this situation, the good thing for the Seahawks is that because they got this thing over my shoulder, they don't have that many needs, which
Yeah.
it's a luxury to say you don't have many needs, at least not many needs for 2026.
Yeah.
Maybe there are some needs for like 2027 that you want to address now because some guys on this year's roster are probably not going to be around the following season. Like
You want to
DeMarcus
develop.
Coleman.
You want to develop down the road.
Exactly. You always got
Yep.
to think a little bit ahead. You don't want to think 4 or 5 years ahead because like let's put away Madden franchise mode for a bit and
Right.
talk about like the immediate first year or 2 ahead of you.
Yep.
To me, their top needs would be, and in no particular order, cornerback, running back, edge rusher. So cornerback, because of the loss of Reek Willen, they don't have that many corners on the roster right now, and a couple of them who did get signed are just going to be competing for roster spots realistically. So to me, this is a very cornerback-rich draft. So they could stay in the first round and try and draft, say, Avion Terrell from Clemson, AJ's brother, or any of the South Carolina dudes. Certainly Brandon Cisse and what's his name, Kilgore are options there.
Yeah.
And I believe they met
Yeah.
with Kilgore in a pre-draft visit. You could go even deeper. You could stay at pick 64 in the second round and try and pick somebody who's a second round caliber corner, even into the third round, like a Julian Neal from Arkansas or Devin Moore from Florida. Again, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to get a better idea where guys are going to most likely be drafted. But running back, this is a position where if they actually use a pick 32 on a running back, I'm not going to be too upset. I know there's been a lot of debate over positional value and should you never take a running back in the first round, this and that. I think running backs are a great short term investment. Do I want
Yeah.
to draft a running back in the top five? No. Do I want to draft a running back at the end of the first round that's so late that it might as well be like a second round pick, but with a fifth year option? I'm no longer as steadfastly against that. Just because
Okay.
Seattle got burned with it with the Rashad Penny pick doesn't mean like it's a no go. Like
Right.
Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love is going to be one of those exceptions as a top 10 running back pick. But Jadarian Price is another excellent running back talent. And this might not be a deep running back class, but again, there are going to be options for the Seahawks there. Whether it's Price, like I mentioned, or Emmett Johnson from Nebraska, Mike Washington from Arkansas has really become sort of this high riser, this late bloomer, thanks to his 1 year with the Razorbacks. So, and then edge rusher is going to be interesting because I don't think it is as deep after you get past the first 20 picks. Obviously, Bain and Mesidor or Mason Thomas, they're probably not going to be in Seattle's reach, and not all of them will necessarily fit Mike McDonald's scheme. But a guy
Yeah.
like really either of the two Michigan guys, whether it's Derek Moore or Jay Sean Barham. And Barham was previously an off ball linebacker and then became an edge rusher. So he might have a little bit of positional versatility where he could be seen as a potential option for the Seahawks. I know Malachi Lawrence is somebody who could quite sneakily be a first round talent, but I don't know how high he's going to go. But really, that's kind of it. And the curveball I'll throw at you is if they see a potential upgrade at right guard on the offensive line. So like Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon, he's somebody who could be very much a possible Anthony Bradford replacement because Bradford, I know he's been kind of the subject, a lightning rod for criticism among Seahawks fans, whether he's playing well or not. But he is in the last year of his contract, whereas everybody else has got multiple years left of
Yeah.
at least team
Mhm.
control. So when you look at the offensive line and the continuity that they have there, you still want to always find a way to improve in the trenches. They could look at Pregnon. They could look at Jennings Dunker from Iowa. Just to have Dunker and Grays able together, that's almost like a buddy cop movie, but for the offensive line.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just look like offensive linemen, guys that you want to have on your team. But I think the Seahawks will make more than four selections. I think they're going to trade and try and get maybe five or six selections.
Yeah.
But people are saying this is not a deep draft or a particularly good draft, you're going to find some good players, even in quote unquote weaker drafts.
Yeah.
And the way that the Seahawks have been able to maneuver these last three drafts under Schneider, I trust them to at least find one or two gems with the limited capital that they have.
All right, very good. So to close us out here, Mookie, I mean, we talked about what the Seahawks have lost so far in free agency, but look, and as you mentioned, we know they are still a strong team. Super Bowl winning teams usually are still strong the year after they win. We talked about how we want our teams just to be relevant the following year, even whether it's after a Super Bowl win or it's after playoff appearances. So, what do you see as the biggest strength of this Seahawks team heading into this 2026 season and why?
To paraphrase from a Saturday Night Live legend, the Seahawks have Mike McDonald, and you
Yeah.
don't. I mean, it really is one of those situations where I truly believe that
Yeah.
McDonald is one of those special coaches, much like Sean McVay was for not even was, is for the Rams. I'm hoping it's was and that he retires at some point sooner rather than later because I'm
Yeah.
sick of dealing with McVay.
I know. I
But
know.
yeah, he is a terrific coach, and McDonald is well on his way to being considered one of the great coaches in this league. Now that the rest of the league is starting to pay more attention to the Seahawks. I mean, people I don't want to like broad brush it, but maybe part of the reason a lot of fans or maybe a lot of analysts weren't as enthused about the Super Bowl beyond just the fact that it was Drake May and Sam Darnold as quarterbacks and not Mahomes again or Stafford in the Super Bowl, whatever, is because they really didn't know Mike McDonald all that much.
Yeah.
And of course, he had the great success with Baltimore as a defensive coordinator. And then in 2024, 10-7, you missed the playoffs. But this year, the Seahawks were not projected. They were not expected to A,
Right.
make the playoffs, B, win the Super Bowl. So for the Seahawks to turn into this juggernaut, it kind of just came out of the blue. Uh, if you were paying a little more close attention to the Seahawks, you would have seen that it was a playoff caliber team. But
Yeah.
even the most optimistic Seahawks fans, I don't think in large thought this was a Super Bowl caliber team. And a lot of it is coaching. Like this is a great roster, no doubt about it. But it's also you also have a great coaching staff, and it's led by McDonald and his adaptability on defense. And you see that he is kind of like the Sean McVay of defense. He knows how to attack modern NFL offenses. Look at the way he shut down Kyle Shanahan's 49ers. Two
Yes.
straight games not allowing a touchdown.
Yep.
And obviously, the Rams certainly have given McDonald some problems before, and that's where I think edge rusher might matter a lot more in terms of finding somebody who can get after Matthew Stafford more consistently. But still, the rest of the NFL, the Seahawks had the number one scoring defense. It was hard to score on this team, hard to get first downs because of all these exotic blitzes, sim pressures, being able to win with a four-man rush, being able to defend the run so effectively with two high safeties and light, quote unquote, light boxes.
Yeah.
So McDonald has got a lot of this stuff figured out. And when the Seahawks have had bad defensive showings, which has been few and far between under McDonald, he has generally come back with a better game plan and a better performance immediately the following week. And it shouldn't be lost on people that yes, they lost Clint Kubiak to the Raiders as from offensive coordinator to head coach. Understandably, you're going to take that job, even if it is the Raiders. But they kept most of the coaching staff from the Super Bowl team. So Kubiak only got a couple of assistants from Seattle's staff, and it'd be like lower end assistants like Rick Dennison, for example, and
Yeah.
Andrew Janocka, the quarterbacks coach. They kept guys and they added people like Zach Orr from the Baltimore Ravens to be a linebackers coach and Daniel Stern to be kind of one of these game analysts. And he's considered a bright assistant in this league. So the coaching staff for the Seahawks has this team prepared so well. They're so disciplined, such that they should be competitive with anybody in the NFL. And to me, they just have that edge,
Yeah.
that coaching edge just on the sidelines on a weekly basis because McDonald has really kind of been able to ease his way in, and quite quickly, I might add, into life as an NFL head coach. And he's certainly been more upfront with his interviews. He's been very open as far as being more hands on with the offense. And I
Yeah.
think that was a big thing. Ryan Grubb, first year, it was pretty much a disaster. So he fired him. You get Clint Kubiak, you build the offense and mold the offense to what you want it to be. And you lose Kubiak, you hire Brian Fleury. He's probably going to be in the same situation where the way the offense performs in practice, the way the offense looks in actual games, you're going to have to answer to Mike McDonald and figure out what you can do to be better in the weeks to come. So, again, we're months away from the new season, but the Seahawks have, to me, an elite head coach. And just that alone, as long as you don't have a bottom tier roster, can take you a long way in this league.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to follow the Seattle Seahawks and what they do for the remainder of this offseason until training camp starts and this season starts. Again, folks, he is Mookie Alexander from fieldgoals.com over at SB Nation. Search him out online. Head on over to fieldgoals.com. Again, fantastic content that you are putting up, my friend, on a consistent basis. I'd love to talk to you again. Always love having you on the show. Come back, join us, and we'll get into some more Seahawks and NFL talk.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll be seeing you in Philadelphia later this
Yes.
season. I mean, it's been a long time since the Eagles have beaten the Seahawks, 2008, I believe. So
It's
if
been a
there was
little
ever a
while.
time, I mean,
Yes.
Greek Woolen against his old team, I'm kind of looking forward to that.
That's going to be a great storyline. We should definitely do our pregame show for sure with you.
Totally.